This is Tom with the Crypto Crew, and today I'm talking to Roger. Roger has a sighting of what might possibly be a Thunderbird. Roger, how are you today?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Tom?
I'm okay. It's a little bit rainy, but we're okay.
Okay.
Let's start out by describing where you was at and what you were doing when you have seen this unusual bird.
Okay, well, I partake in an activity called disc golf. There's courses all around middle of the woods. And where I'm from, we have a small course behind a middle school in a city called Riverview, Michigan. And down at the bottom of one of these holes used to stand a tall, dead tree, kind of split from a Y. The main trunk split into a Y, and then there was a nice long limb that, was hanging over. And the first time that I saw this creature, I didn't even know that it was there. I was just playing, and we were playing night golf. So this was, plenty dark and nothing but the moonlight to allow us to see. And when I got down to the hole, I shot my putt in and hit the chains. And as soon as I did that, I heard this loud squawk. It scared the hell out of me, so I instantly kind of, ducked down a little bit and then looked up. And I see this bird just flying. And I couldn't for the life of me think of what it was. It was far bigger than anything I had ever seen or done any research on. Then maybe a couple months after, or possibly even the next summer after, my best friend and I were same place, same time frame, well into the night, maybe 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. We're going down and we're playing night golf again. And I had already told him that I had seen something like this, and, he had thought that I was lying and whatnot, and didn't think that what I saw was anything about what I described. But come to find out, as we're walking up to that hole and looking up into the same tree on the same limb, it's sitting there. It's sitting there, not moving, except just for turning its head from side to side. And we're staring at it probably for, a good minute. And all of a sudden, the bird just opens its wings and jumps. The entire limb starts shaking, and the Y of the tree starts kind of moving back and forth a little bit. So you can tell how heavy this bird was when it jumped up. And from my estimation, I would say that the bird's wingspan was anywhere between 12 and 15 feet, give or take a foot or two. The sighting would be 50 feet in the air, maybe even 40 feet in the air, is where this limb stood off the ground. It was nice, dark, black bird, but you could see kind of, when it opened its wings up, you could see on the back of the wing, you could see the individual feathers. Not on the front of the wing at all, it was too clustered, but as it tailed back, you could see the tips of the feathers. And then the bird's head was kind of similar to a turkey vulture head, but, kind of had like a thinner gooseneck, that kind of, it's hard to describe, just kind of S-ed over a little.
Mm-hmm.
And then had a longer beak. The beak itself was, pretty long, and you could easily see it.
Well, let me ask you a question concerning the body of the creature. How large would you say the body of the creature was, say, from the head to like the feet?
Maybe 3 feet. Maybe 3 feet. That would be harder for me to describe and kind of give an estimate on. But I would say 3 feet. Could be even 4 feet. Could be just as small as 2 feet. As far as maybe weight goes of the bird, I don't really know what birds weigh, but I wouldn't be able to, if this bird had its wings tucked in, I don't think that I would be able to hold it in my arms really without being able to walk. I mean, it was quite large.
Another question: do you think that there's some kind of food source there, or do you know of any food source that's close by that that would be bringing it there on a regular basis?
Well, we've thought about that. We've talked about this numerous times, me and my buddy, and there is a dump, a trash dump that's not too far away, and then right behind this disc golf course that we play at is a regular golf course as well, a nice wide open golf course with a creek that is probably no more than 20 feet wide. I wouldn't even call it a river, but it'd be a creek. Aside from that, I couldn't think of any food source that would be in the area. There's a quarry that's close by as well, I guess, within a couple miles. What's strange is that I've seen this bird only 2 times, and both times was in the exact same area. If it was just one time or something like that I saw this, I wouldn't even think anything of it. That I was seeing something, or the light was playing tricks or something like that, but to hear the bird squawk, and then when it took off that second time that I saw it, I could hear the flaps of the wings. Kind of like how you hear in a movie when they add sound effects to like a bird, or maybe some of the Batman movies when you just hear that flap. You could hear that loud and clear when this bird took off.
And you've seen it both times at night?
Both times at night, absolutely. Never seen it during the day. I've played there at that course more times than I've played any sport at any single facility. It was my home course, and I played every day for years there.
Have you ever noticed any feathers or anything like that around that area that might be loose on the ground or anything?
Nope, I certainly have not. I've never found anything that I could say that I would attribute to that bird or any creature of the liking. The only things that I found online as far as researching on what it could be and what not, or what it couldn't be, I've researched different birds and their wingspans and their sizes and stuff like that. And, the biggest bird that's known that's in North America to be wild, really, wingspan-wise, would be your California condor or your Albion albatross, okay? But the albatross is white. It's white and gray.
Right. And that's a pretty good distance for a condor to be. Usually they're not that far out.
Right. California condors, they're all black, so I lean closer to that, but it doesn't measure up to the same size. Condor can get up to a 9.5-foot wingspan. Now, if someone had told me for sure, if someone was standing there with me and they could see up and see what I was seeing, they said, you know what, that's absolutely a 12-foot wingspan or a 13-foot wingspan, I'd say, I could believe that. I could see that, okay? But for someone to tell me that what I saw was a 9.5-foot wingspan or a 10-foot wingspan, I'd say there's no way. It was bigger.
Bigger than that.
Yeah, and then on the other side of the spectrum, if someone told me that it was like a 20-foot wingspan, I'd say, nah, it wasn't really that big. But up to maybe like an 18-foot wingspan, I could possibly, believe.
And you couldn't see any kind of coloration at all?
No, everything was black. It looked like maybe the neck itself was lighter in color, but not by much. But then again, it was also dark outside, and all we had was the moonlight, to see with. But this bird wasn't 200 or 300 feet in the air either. This, every time we played during the day, we can see this tree that it was sitting in, and every time we go and play, we talk about it there. This tree limb, it sat 40 feet off the ground at most. Okay, it was no higher than just a few stories off the ground. So we weren't that far away from the bird to where I would think that our estimate would be that far off.
Well, what's kind of interesting about your sighting is, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be in it, but I don't think I am, I have taken in other reports of an unknown bird, large bird being seen in and around the Michigan area. I'll have to check my sightings map and some of my past notes to see if the locations are, close to where you've seen yours, and maybe I could compare that way and see if we can find maybe a pattern or a flight path type thing.
Okay.
But
also something that you should take down in your report as well, which I certainly cannot imitate, but the squawk of this bird was certainly loud, but it was just that. It was a squawk. It wasn't any other noise except for the screech part of a bird's squawk. So I've also researched on, sounds that the condor makes and things like that, the albatross, and their calls are just completely different than what this was.
okay.
I did come across a video on YouTube showing a large bird that was caught in a fence that some people rescued, and they called it a pterodactyl, some rare pterodactyl. But that would be the closest thing, when I heard that bird squawk on that video, the closest thing to what we heard. And when the bird on the video squawked, there was a guy that was kind of holding the back of the neck, so it was a little deepened than what we heard. But you could find that video pretty easily if you wanted to reference that.
Well, also talking about the pterodactyl, which we don't know, maybe this type of bird is some kind of offshoot of that, but there was actually reports in like the late 1800s in Texas of one being killed. So that's really, if you think about it, that's not that long ago, really.
No, it's not.
And,
if someone thought that it was a pterodactyl, I mean, certainly with evolution and whatnot, these prehistoric birds over time, they certainly could change from what, we find of the bone structure as well. And then being that there's, no humans really on record to, I don't know how much research says on, when you find fossils and what you can say of their skin structure, and aside from just their bone structure, what their organic skin was made out of. But, certainly with evolution, things can, change and whatnot. And, birds these days, we see birds, they have feathers. That's what birds have, right?
yeah, they adapt and change. Yeah.
Yep. So, is it possible? Before I saw this, if someone told me, hey man, pterodactyls exist, okay, you're funny, you're joking. But with what I saw, I just, it's a little crazy. I'd be open to think that it was anything.
Well, definitely what you saw was something out of the ordinary. I mean, unusual.
Yeah, absolutely unusual and rare. I've never in my life before, with all the interest that I've had in, oversized creatures or Bigfoot or the Loch Ness, I've never seen something in my life that I've tried to describe to other people and, they just couldn't believe. I'm not the guy that has, 15 to 20 different sightings of different things. This is one thing in my life, that, there's just no way people believe me. And there's another witness too, my best friend. We've been best friends for 12 years. And every time we try to explain it to somebody, it comes down to us saying, look, man, they just don't believe us. It's just how it is. We're never going to know.
Well, it's like that with the Bigfoot world too. Is once you've seen one, you try to tell people who don't believe or won't even entertain the thought. They just, you have to just go on with it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't realize Michigan has a lot of woodland. It's been about 2 years ago, I went up to the Upper Peninsula and stayed several days, and there's a lot of woodland up that way.
Oh, yes.
Lots
of vast property up here.
So, with all that woodland, there's a lot of different animals and stuff too. So they could, sustain a larger animal like this bird you saw.
Sure, without being seen on a regular basis, absolutely.
Would there be anything else that you'd like to add that maybe I've not asked you or I've left out?
being on the spot, it makes it tough to bring things to mind. On what else I could detail. The only thing I could think of is just other research that I've done, looking into exactly what we saw and what we found, and but nothing that strictly comes to mind. However, I can always send an email. I can talk to my buddy, and he might have a little bit different of a take as far as what we saw. A little bit different frame of reference, and I can try to get you his contact information and see if he'd be open for an interview as well.
Okay, and if you don't want to do that, if you could just maybe get him to write an email of what he saw and his views about it, and just email them to me, and I could use that as well.
Okay, it would give you a little bit more reference.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be the same sighting, but from two different, reference points.
But see, it's good that you took the initiative to try to identify it by going to YouTube and looking at various birds and sounds.
I've probably put 30 hours into research over the last 6 years, which isn't a lot over 6 years, but it's a lot of time looking at pictures online and reading different reports of things.
Mm.
And as far as any well-known bird, what we saw does not match. It does not. It is non-existent. It is unknown to the bird world.
Well, these kind of reports is what it takes to eventually get something like that recognized. So it's just our starting point, I suppose.
Okay.
So
I'm certainly glad I could help, and if I would have known, about your crew or anything like that, the crypto crew, if I'd have known about them sooner, I would have reported it sooner. My buddy was scanning the internet after a day of trying to tell people at his job about this, and then started looking up other sightings and found your page, and he forwarded that to me, and I looked into your page, and I decided to go ahead and report the sighting even though it was older,
Well, now, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but I have a sightings map. If you go to it, I actually do push pin the map with Thunderbird sightings. So that might be something that might be useful for you as well.
Okay. I could certainly look into that.
And there's a link at the top of the page. It says sightings map. And I also document and the Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings.
Okay.
So, but the Thunderbird's kind of interesting. There seems to be a pattern to hit that it's more northern overall. So if you look at that, maybe that might be something that might be helpful to you as well.
Okay. Well, if I ever come across any definitive answers on anything about what I saw, or maybe I find a picture of something or another video of something that shows what I can vividly remember, I'll make sure I forward that information on to you and your crew as well.
Yes, please do. Just feel free to contact us at any time. And if you don't have anything else to add, I guess we'll just close her off right now. And I thank you for doing the interview and for contacting me initially with the report.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for your time as well.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.